If you're a kid, please make note of this. It's for your own good. Today's feature presentation will be in 3 dimensions. Okay, it actually won't be, since I don't know how to make anything appear 3D on computers. Though I must ask, how many of you are reminded of the day and age where every film was in 3D? And I mean every film. Yeah, I don't like 3D glasses either. The Nintendo 3DS is one of my favorite consoles of all time. Ever since I got mine all the way back on Christmas of 2011, I've gotten tons of mileage out of it. I even have it to thank for introducing me to many of my favorite franchises. So, for it just turning 10 years old, dude, why does the universe make me feel like I'm getting old really fast? I thought it would be a good idea to talk about some games I felt like were high points in its library. For Criterion, any 3DS game is allowed on here, even if it eventually saw a port onto other consoles. And I want to say that because the 3DS was at its most popular when I was in high school, I didn't have the time or money to play a lot of popular games on there, like these. But I definitely played a solid amount, so it's time I pay this treasure a good due for its anniversary. I may love this system, but even I can admit that none of Mario's absolute highest points were on here. Not to say Mario had a bad run, he actually did very well on this thing, mostly. However, even Mario's greatest 3DS games were games that are fairly standard for the series, rather than groundbreakers. Despite this, I find Mario 3D Land to be a really fun time. I mean, this is kind of what you expect from Mario, implementing the smooth gameplay he's known for into imaginative levels, but I don't really see that as a bad thing. Mario controls fantastically, and each level has fresh ideas that are kept dense, straight to the point, and fast-paced, which does tie into how well it does execute the idea of 2D Mario levels translated into 3D. I find a lot of enjoyment out of analyzing the levels and finding the fastest route possible. The power-ups are also very fun to use. I do like the challenges the game creates for you later on, especially if you decide to go after everything, and the presentation is not only aced, but it also makes some neat usage of the 3D slider. It's just a really enjoyable platformer overall, and sometimes that's all you need. Anyone remember the days when Kingdom Hearts was all over the place in terms of console exclusivity? If not, man, you have it really good. Nowadays, it's common knowledge that you can play just about every important Kingdom Hearts game on modern consoles and PC without much hassle. But back in the 2000s and early 2010s, we had to invest in many different consoles just so we could catch up on the story that was slowly growing larger, which included the likes of Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance on the 3DS. It was really dumbfounding, putting it generously, but at least the game was actually quite good from a gameplay standpoint. Make whatever you will of the story, since it's pretty well wrapped in the series' continuity, and does some unexpected things, but 2013 me didn't know that at the time, and just wanted a fun game based on the concept alone. Not only did I enjoy it back then, but even today there's still some fun to be had here. The combat feels like it's making something new out of some things that Birth by Sleep established. I really enjoy flow motion as a mechanic for both combat and exploration. There's even some unique things with it based on the enemy or object, some of which cleverly use the 3DS hardware. The worlds are a ton of fun to travel in. I'm personally big on Notre Dame, the Grid, and especially Symphony of Sorcery. And there's something oddly charming about raising Dream Eaters as partners, because it could potentially lead to different loadouts, and therefore different ways of playing the game. If I ever play a Kingdom Hearts game, I wouldn't go to this one immediately with the bosses being on the hit or miss side and the drop gauge being pointless, but I did get a lot of mileage out of this one in the early years, and I still think it's worth picking up. You might have gone to the PS4 version for this one, but for a game released on the 3DS initially, it does have a lot of value. With technology constantly evolving, I personally do appreciate the fact that we get remakes on quite a few occasions. I enjoy that devs can actually look at previously established games from a very smart point of view, while using advancements to make updates and raise the overall entertainment factor. The 3DS in general has a lot of good ones, but one that stands out is one of the games that got me into the system, Star Fox 64 3D. Now, as far as remakes go, this may not be that huge of an advancement, as aside from fixing a lot of the presentation aspects, this is, for the most part, a point-by-point remake of an N64 title. But do I care? Well, since I admit that I never played the original N64 game, and found this one to be a blast regardless, not really. Each planet you go to has its own visual identity, the controls are simple and tight, there's always something going on whether you're in the air or on the ground, most of the bosses were fun, and while a playthrough may be short, there's a lot of levels to see, and by extension, many different ways you can beat the game. There's objectives on every planet of the game, and finding out how to accomplish them opens up pathways to entirely new levels. Some offer more enemies than others, so if you want to be challenged or are going for a high score, you'll get your money's worth here. Sure, it is disappointing that there isn't too much new here, and the gyroscope is not very well handled, but this is well worth it if you can find it. Zelda is a series I think had a great outing on the 3DS. When Nintendo wasn't making excellent remakes of the N64 titles, they were breathing new life into the overhead style used in games like A Link to the Past, which is why I found a massive appreciation for A Link Between Worlds. Even if the ambitions aren't as high as many of the console titles, A Link Between Worlds manages to resonate with me because of the new structural introductions and how much was streamlined. Things happen very quickly, yet you're still in control of what you want to do at a given moment. Nothing takes too long, though you're given enough time to appreciate all the details. There's plenty to do even outside of dungeons, and it may not take very long, but the rewards can make your experience all the more enjoyable. I'm a big fan of how you can easily rent and then later buy all the items that the series is known for really early in the game, and how all of that opens up many different ways to beat it, especially when you get to Low Rule, where you can select any dungeon in any order you want. The wall merging ability is also a neat idea that does give some cool perspectives on the various environments, and opens up new routes to explore. There is a lot to appreciate here, and I love how all the 3DS hardware was utilized. Game is really good. Check it out. I would have never expected the 3DS to be the place where Metroid would make a comeback. I mean, after some time in limbo, it was shocking to see Samus actually return. Quite literally if the title wasn't a dead giveaway. There's so many things Samus Returns does to breathe new life into the series and its 2D roots. Samus has many of the skills and artillery that she had in games like Super Metroid and Fusion, but additions like the melee counter, full 360 aiming, and the Aeon abilities do a great job of making Samus more versatile than in other adventures, and I think they are used well in giving the game some really challenging and fast-paced battles, and hide away extra gear in secret passageways. I also like how this game makes everything you get useful instead of making specific upgrades obsolete when you get another one. It's very appreciated and gives the feeling that everything you get matters. The 3DS's graphical power also did great in making Planet SR388 look really nice, yet give off such a large and foreboding atmosphere that the franchise is famous for. It's downright fun to explore this planet when you get some better gear, and there's always something to look forward to, like the various Metroids to take down, or some kind of upgrade that will help you out. Even if the beginning can be a bit too hard to digest for some players, the game being one of the more linear games in the series, and some tricks for progression being very cryptic, I am so happy to see this faithful bounty hunter return. Okay, I'm avoiding comparisons to other games on consoles for this list, because I want to show the greatness that the system has to offer, but I don't think I can help myself here. Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS. Despite the fact that pretty much everyone has moved on in the Smash series, Smash 3DS is still really fun, and very ambitious bringing Smash to a handheld for the first time. The fighting mechanics are still very fun to mess around with. I really do admire how they were able to fit in everyone on Smash 4's roster into this. The stages, both new and old, are a ton of fun to fight on, some of which never advanced beyond this game, and I do enjoy how much there is in the other modes. I prefer how classic mode is set up compared to the Wii U counterpart, allowing multiple different paths leading to different rewards, a bit like how Star Fox handles multiple pathways now that I think about it. Customization is really cool, if a little underutilized, and Smash Run is honestly one of the best side modes that this series has ever had. I love wandering around this giant map, duking it out with a large assortment of enemies to find buffs to yourself to prepare for a big event at the end. It's addicting and a very good time sink. I'm mostly surprised that Smash Ultimate doesn't have something like this. I admit that a lot of this stuff is things that Smash Wii U and especially Smash Ultimate do better, but I still find value within this 3DS version, and I admire how it took steps in the right direction. I still enjoy it, and if you can't get Ultimate, I think you will too. I had to place a Kirby game on here. The Kirby games on 3DS are honestly series highlights if you ask me, building how it worked in Return to Dreamland, but trying different things while they were at it. So now, which one do I talk about Planet Robobot? This was a surprisingly easy choice, because it really felt like the devs over at Hawlo went all out with what you can do with this concept. Because an alien mechanical industry took over Planet Popstar, every location in this game goes for a more industrial and technological feel, but combines them with different themes you'd expect from Kirby to create an identity all its own. Like the first world combines the natural Greenland with machinery, and turns a bunch of the natural life into machine life. Guess they're fans of Ratchet & Clank. While the third world is this game's water level, but it's a harbor instead of a beach, which does open the way for a different design. The whole game is like this, and everything visually sticks out. Kirby's perfectly capable of handling himself with his control style being the same as it ever was, and the combination of new and returning copy abilities, some of which came back from much older games. But the main highlight of the game is the Robobot armor. This thing isn't just another ability like the super abilities from Return to Dreamland or the Hypernova from Triple Deluxe. It's pretty much a completely separate playstyle that's a lot different from what Kirby is used to, but it can get copy abilities all its own. And those are used for some really creative level design, puzzles, or even transformations in gameplay like racing along a big obstacle course in a race car, or turning into a plane for 2D shooting sections. With how much you are in this mech, this game really goes above and beyond what the cool stuff you get to do in the game. I also love the bosses, the side modes, the alternate story where you can control Meta Knight, the surprisingly clever use of 3DS hardware, and the amount of fanservice spread all over the place that I still feel confident in calling this the highlight of the Kirby series to date. It's fantastic, and you should really try this when you have a chance.
Ice cream gives you help.
I know I talk about this game a lot, as do many others, but with how remarkably solid it is, I'm pretty sure you can see why. For a game released near the beginning of the system's life cycle, I'm astonished at how well everything was utilized. Everything is incredibly expressive and well animated, even in 3D, that the whole thing just pops, and it even feels good to play. Okay, there are parts of that vary depending on who you ask, but honestly, with how the game controls to what's designed around it, I still feel right at home playing it. Whether you're in the air or on land, the action never stops. There's a huge variety of weapons with different playstyles, meaning that there's a little something for everyone in here, and this game has a fantastic approach to difficulty. The risk being that you increase the amount of enemies and the health that they have, but the reward being that you get more hearts and more weapons, so it's worth replaying chapters to see what you can get. There's so much to collect that you'll be here for a long time if you're going for 100%. Or you can make a weapon you like and take it online for some multiplayer mayhem. Simple, yet chaotic fun. Just how I like it. And that's pretty much what I like about this game. I could just sit down and have a blast with it for a long time. Now, can we please get a follow-up or a port on Switch? Please? Don't let Pity Pat go dormant for more than 2 decades again. Pokemon is a giant selling point for me on any Nintendo system. If the series plans to make a new main installment, I'll usually be there to pick it up. And it did well on the 3DS, but to me, the Gen 7 installments, Pokémon Sun and Moon, and Pokémon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, were by far the best in the series was on that system. I always loved classic Pokemon action, and Z-moves are a great addition to spice things up. I love almost all the new Pokemon, special mentions going to Primarina, Vikavolt, Lycanroc, and Kamalo, and Alola is a fantastic region with many memorable locations, and a really tropical feel which is immensely refreshing. The color palette these games use really brings life to the 3DS like little else. I also do appreciate the game's main structure being set up as trials that vary in terms of goal completion, and the totem Pokemon making for great bosses to fight at the end of them. And hey, the story is overall pretty good too. It brings back many of the ideas presented in Gen 5, with a more morally grey conflict and heavier threats, and it did its job in keeping me on the edge of my seat and giving me some great characters while I was at it. And if that was enough, there's plenty to do after the game is over, especially in the Ultra games. You'll be here for a while if you want to get everything. When it comes down to it, I can't find myself to really separate Vanilla Sun and Moon from the Ultra counterparts. They each have their own highs and lows, but they are some of my personal favorite Pokemon games ever. And they're 3DS royalty, as far as I'm concerned with. You know the drill by now, it's time for some other good eggs to receive mentions. Mario Kart 7, very much what you expect from Mario Kart, but it's still fun. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. I admit I played Dual Destinies on my iPhone instead of my 3DS, so I had trouble including it, but Spirit of Justice does have enough to warrant a mention, despite some pacing issues. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, not big on the execution of the mission-based structure, but the gameplay is still a ton of fun and even creative at points. Pokemon Gen 6, more on the experimental side for the 3D jump, but all the games still have merit. Fire Emblem Awakening, I will always respect it for bringing the series back into the limelight and making it a big series for Nintendo. And finally, Kirby Triple Deluxe, Play of Kirby Love to be found here. I make my own fate. You can call this predictable all you can, but I prefer the term truthful. I thought about this in Pokemon Gen 7 for a while, but after some time, I came to the conclusion that I preferred Fire Emblem Fates. And it's honestly not hard to see why, as this is one of the most well-rounded and engaging games I have ever played. Everything about Fire Emblem was refined for the better here. Pair-ups were expanded and balanced out as a mechanic way more. The new weapon triangle gave every unit and weapon type a fair fighting chance. The class system is still amazing and gives you a ton to work with in terms of building units. Weapon durability being scrapped was honestly for the better in this scenario, and there are plenty of maps that just borderline get creative, especially in the Revelation route. These are some really nice ideas that really get the player thinking as to what's ahead and strategizing in advance. Heck, the story is even really interesting, and I still love all of these characters. Everything here is overclocking what the 3DS can do without it suffering in anything presentation related. And considering what is on this cartridge and what was released as DLC is astounding. I'm still amazed by what was accomplished here, and I'm still not tired of what it has to offer, even after nearly 300 hours and playthroughs where I completely changed nearly everyone's classes. Even if Fire Emblem's audience isn't as big as Nintendo's other series, I would still recommend this to anyone. It's an unforgettable experience that I still want to play, and I have yet to find a Fire Emblem game that can top this for me. I am the Link Ripper, and while the 3DS's run may be completely done, I still believe it is worth loving and appreciating for all it did. Happy 10th anniversary, Nintendo 3DS! Why does the world have to make me feel like a 40-year-old?